Welcome to Getting to Know You. I'm your host, Eman Tuzman-Eagan, and I'm happy to welcome you to the podcast where we get to know members of the Berkshire Hills Music Academy better. Today's guest joining us is Matt Chastain, joining us from Berkshire Hills. Thank you for joining the show.
Good, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
First question, where were you born?
Where was I born? I was born in a town called Warwick, New York, but I actually grew up just south of that border in Vernon, New Jersey.
Where did you go to college?
I went to a couple of different colleges. Originally, I went to UMass Amherst, which is how I got to the area, how I ended up in Western Mass here. But then when I graduated from UMass, I went and did graduate school at the University of Wisconsin in Madison.
Can you tell us a little more about that experience?
Yeah.
What was Wisconsin like?
Wisconsin was pretty good.
I don't know Wisconsin that well, so
the winters,
for listeners who don't know what Wisconsin's like.
Yeah, the winters were pretty bitter out there, but I enjoyed it. It was the thing that was really great about going there is that I was offered a scholarship to go and do my master's degree there. And so that was the main reason why I chose to go there. I think that's a lot more common in graduate school, especially in music, is that a lot of times people are looking for programs that are able to fund your degree, like give you the money to be able to go there. And so that was a big part of making my decision. But I enjoyed it. But as you can see, I came right back. So
what did you get your master's in, if you don't mind?
My master's degree is in voice, in my undergrad as well. Both my bachelor's and master's are in voice performance. So I was focused on like classical singing and opera and stuff like that.
And that was all at Wisconsin?
Not all at Wisconsin. I started actually when I was at UMass. So my voice teacher at UMass, his name is Bill Height. I give him a lot of credit for kind of getting me into it. I only started formal voice training when I was a student at UMass my sophomore year, and that's when I decided to pursue singing for a little while.
And then you went to Wisconsin?
Yep. And then I followed that on to Wisconsin. And then
actually at Wisconsin?
I finished my master's degree, but by the time I graduated from Wisconsin, I had already kind of decided that I didn't want to fully pursue a career in classical singing. But I think the great thing is, like, in music and in all aspects of life, right, you can kind of you can change what you're going to do. You can change your mind, right? So I went through a big kind of like change in what I wanted to do. I'm still obviously in the music field, but what I do now is very different than what I used to do.
Can you tell the listeners what you do now?
Well, as you know, I'm here at Berkshire Hills. I'm a music instructor here. I'm the performance and ensembles manager here at Berkshire Hills.
Cool.
I oversee our on-campus performances. I mean, you see, like, I do the, handling the equipment and running the sound mix and stuff for the live performances. But also just kind of like making sure that all of our bands, our gigging bands, have everything that they need, that they're equipped for performances and for rehearsals and all that stuff. And then outside of here, I also have another job. I actually play and sing in a wedding band that's based in Boston. So,
nice.
Again,
I hear you're the manager of the Capabilities.
I am. Yeah, the Capabilities.
You gig with them?
I go out on gigs with the Capabilities. Yep, that's the BHMA band that I probably spend most of my time with.
Are you their manager? Or?
Myself and Tom Slowick are kind of co-directors of that group. And so together, I would say we sort of function as like the manager and also music director. But again, it's a collaborative effort. It's not like one of us does one thing and one of us does the other. We split up the work really nicely. And so it creates a really nice balance. For example, the other day we had a gig at a school and we had two performances. And for the first performance, I ran sound and Tom played bass on keyboard.
Oh, cool.
And then for the second performance, Tom ran sound and I played bass on a bass guitar.
Where was the show?
That was at an elementary school. I'm blanking on the town. Maybe in Warren?
Huh. So not close to here.
Not that close.
Out in the eastern part of the state?
Oh, no, that one was East Longmeadow, actually. But yeah, we do have a lot of gigs that are further out in the eastern part of the state. Usually not much further than, like, Central Mass. Like I said, we were at Warren. Like East Brookfield is a place we go down to Longmeadow and like Enfield, Connecticut.
Nice.
We did have one gig that was all the way out in Manchester by the sea.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Not that long ago. Yeah. But those are a little more few and far between. Most of our gigs are within about an hour of the academy.
In Mosier, right?
And Mosier is the best gig, man. That's like a hop and a skip down the street. Yeah, that's my favorite one.
What did you major in college? You probably told me.
Oh, yeah, no, it's like I said, that was in voice.
But you said you changed your mind, people.
Well, yeah, so actually, yeah, good point. Yeah,
Was voice your first... When you went to school, did you think, I'm going to go to college for music?
No. Well, it was music, but not voice. Yeah. So actually, I'm glad you bring that up. It's a really good point. So when I first got to UMass, I actually was a music education major.
Oh, wow.
So specifically wanting to be a teacher. And my main instrument was saxophone.
The one that John plays.
Exactly, right. Yeah. So when you go to school for music, typically most music programs you have to audition on whatever is your main instrument. Uh-huh. And so coming into college, I considered saxophone my main instrument. So that's what I had auditioned on. That was my main instrument my freshman year. And it wasn't until my sophomore year that I actually made the decision to switch to voice, because I realized at that time that, you can... Your main instrument, regardless of what your main instrument is while you're in school for music, you can still get training in a variety of things. You can be a music education major and major in voice or major in saxophone. And at the end of the day, you're still getting a degree in music education. You're still licensed to teach music in public schools, So that's why I really switched to voice, because I started to find that I was a stronger singer than I was a saxophone player. But yeah.
Brings me to the next question. How did you get involved with BHMA?
How did I get involved with BHMA? Well, I don't know if you've ever had her on the podcast, but there's somebody who used to work here named Brianna Resnick.
She is.
She did have her here once. Yeah. So Brianna and I went to UMass together. We actually grew up close to each other, but we didn't know each other before college. It's just a coincidence we're from similar areas. But we were at UMass together throughout the time we were there. We knew each other. We were both in the music program and stuff. And after a few years after that, when I came back after I'd graduated from Wisconsin, so in 2019.
You came back to the area.
I came back to the area here, and I ran into Brianna because at the time I was working at Trader Joe's.
Yeah, the one that Carly works at.
Exactly, I was working at the one in Hadley over there. And Brianna used to come in and do her grocery shopping.
Nice.
And I got talking to her a couple times about Berkshire Hills and just about what a cool place this is and the stuff that goes on here. And she is the one who actually ended up talking to me and saying, "Hey, would you be interested in working here at Berkshire Hills?"
So she hired you?
And no, she didn't hire me. She recommended me to Jacob Bernstein, who ended up hiring me. But the funny thing is, the first time she asked me, I said, no thanks. And then it wasn't until a couple months later that she talked to me again. She said, "I don't know. I think you'd really like it. I think it'd be really something that you would enjoy." And I said, "Okay, man. Let me give it a try. Let me give it a chance."
How long have you been here?
And now I've been here over 3 years, and I love it. I mean, it's this BHMA, as you know, is such a unique place. There's nowhere else in the world like it, and we do some really, really cool, fun stuff here. So.
Who are your musical inspirations? That would be tough to answer.
That is kind of tough to answer, I'd say, I kind of have different inspirations, I've had different big inspirations at different parts of my life, I would say, I always say, though, one of my earliest and most important musical inspirations is the band AC/DC.
Huh.
And the reason is because when I was maybe in 4th or 5th grade, very, very young, I feel like AC/DC was the first band that I wanted to listen to because I liked them. Not because somebody else liked them or because my parents had them on in the car or whatever. It was the first band that I decided, no, I like this band for me. And I got really, really into AC/DC. And you know where I first heard them?
Where?
The soundtrack to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4.
Nice.
You ever play that game?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Back
you remember the Pro
day.
Skater game? Yeah, exactly. So Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 on PlayStation 2.
You're a video game man?
I'm not a big video game guy. No, not especially. But I used to like that game, obviously, when I was 10. Yeah. And that was the theme song was TNT by AC/DC. And I ended up that sent me down the rabbit hole. But over the years, I feel like I've had a lot of important musical inspirations. I mean, Fish is my favorite band. Trey Anastasio of Fish is one of my most influential musicians for sure. Also, when I was in the classical universe and I was doing more of that, there's a singer called Dmitry Vorostovsky. He was a Russian opera singer and classical singer. And actually, he passed away in 2018, maybe 2017. And still to this day, it was probably the one of the deaths that affected me most, like somebody who I didn't know personally, but that still had such an effect over me because I just looked up to him so much as an artist. So yeah, so that's like I said, I don't really do a whole lot of classical singing anymore, and so it's not like I reference Dimitri's singing on a daily basis, but I still feel like he was a massive inspiration for me at what was an important time, you know, like when I was really like, you know, going through school and things like that.
What is your favorite song to jam to?
That's tough, man. I mean, I did mention Fish, right? So you know I like to jam, but I don't know. It kind of can depend on my mood sometime, but like right off the top of my head, there are 2 Jimi Hendrix songs that I love jamming to, just because I love soloing over them. Little Wing and Hey Joe are like 2 of my favorite songs to jam to. Little Wing is like a little more complex, you know, has some really interesting stuff going on. Hey Joe is like pretty straightforward, like it's an old Bob Dylan tune, right?
Yeah.
You know, that Hendrix ended up covering.
Nice.
Or is it? Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those that Hendrix, but not really Hendrix, right? So anyway, yeah, those 2 I would say.
If you could play with any musician, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Any musician, dead or alive? That is a tough question, man. There are so many, you know, like it depends. I think because I'm a multi-instrumentalist, I play different things, I sing. So it's like, you know, it's like, yeah, if I was like, you know, it depends on on what I was doing, right? You know, like, but I don't know. I already said him, but I think probably Trey Anastasio, the guitarist and singer from Fish. He might be that person for me. Or Paige McConnell, the keyboard player from Fish.
Nice. What is your favorite song to play on guitar? Do you play bass, not guitar?
Well, I play both. Yeah, no, I played.
What is your favorite song to play on guitar?
I started on guitar.
Do you have a favorite song?
Honestly, when I sit down and pick up a guitar, the first thing I play every time is 3 a.m. by Matchbox 20.
Okay.
I'm not really sure why. I think it's just kind of like, tuning the guitar. It's just a good way to check the tuning, make sure it's in tune. Yep. But I tend to always play that song. So I guess in a way right now it's 3 a.m. Yeah.
How long have you been playing guitar?
I started guitar really young. 20 years ago now. Wow. That's crazy to think. It was 20 years ago. Because, I was 9. I'm 29 now. So, yeah. I started playing guitar about 20 years ago, and I also started playing, like, clarinet around the same time. And so for a while, I kind of struggled with, like, what is my main instrument, you know? Like, but now I would say it's definitely, like, guitar and bass are my main instruments, you know? Like, so, yeah. And I don't know if are you a guitarist or bassist at all?
No, I don't play instruments.
Yeah. So I know
I was a drummer.
You can drum. Yeah.
I was a drummer for the Troop for a while.
I've seen you rock on the drums a little bit, man.
I was a drummer for the Troop for a while.
I'm sure you could still do it, but yeah, no. Guitar and bass are really similar instruments.
My dad and sister play guitar.
Oh yeah. So once you play,
and my brother plays bass.
I would say if you learn bass, it can be hard to switch over to guitar, but if you learn the guitar, it's usually pretty easy to pick up the bass. There are different techniques, but the notes are the same, and because there are less strings, if anything, it's just kind of a little bit of a simpler way of playing guitar. So I started playing bass kind of just by chance over the years. But now, like you started to say before, right, I'm more of a bass player than a guitar player now. I would say bass is really my main instrument. And that's not necessarily because, like, I can do one better than the other. I'm just more comfortable on bass. Like, when I'm playing an ensemble, I feel like I can function better as the bassist.
If you had a superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, man, that's funny. That's a curveball. I feel like we're going in a different direction with that one. I don't know. If I had a superpower, I feel like, you know, as basic as it is, I feel like I would just want to be able to fly.
That's what a lot of people say that.
Because, I mean, that would just be really nice and really cool. But it would be so convenient.
It would.
I could get home, like, if I could fly pretty quickly, like I could fly 30, 40 miles an hour, dude, I'd be home from work in 5 minutes every day. It'd be amazing. I'd bypass all the traffic, go right over top of all the highways, you know? So, yeah, just for that. Although I feel like I would need to be able to, like, fly with, like, a lot of cargo.
Okay.
You know, like I can't be driving myself to I drive myself to Boston for gigs a lot, right?
Oh, yeah.
I can't be flying.
Really?
I can't fly myself to Boston if I'm going to have to carry a guitar and an amp.
No.
That's not going to work, you know. So yeah, I don't know.
Tell the listeners why you go to Boston for gigs. Tell us
I go,
about that.
yeah. So I play in a band.
For the listeners who don't know.
Yeah,
It's outside of here?
Yeah, that's outside of BHMA.
This wedding band?
I play in a band. Exactly. Yeah. So I play in a band. We're called Closing Time. You know the song Closing Time?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're named after that song.
Is anybody in here part of that band or just you?
No, I don't know. Nobody else at BHMA is
Just you?
involved. Just me in that. But
So tell the listeners about that.
Yeah, so we're primarily a wedding band based out of the Boston area. But
All the members are from Boston?
Everybody lives like in and around Boston. Yeah, pretty much. You know, close. You're
the only member out here.
I was gonna say, I live the furthest from Boston out of everybody. There's a couple people who live like 30, 40 minutes outside of Boston. You know, like, but the gigs that we play right now, like this time of year, are primarily at bars and restaurants in Boston.
All right.
Because if you think about it, like wedding season is like the summer, like spring, summer, fall.
Yeah.
Winter isn't really like the greatest time for people to be getting married, and so there aren't a whole lot of weddings this time of year, so we primarily just play these bar gigs right now, right? But once wedding season gets started, the gigs are all over Eastern Mass. Sometimes I have to drive a full 2.5 hours out onto the Cape.
Wow.
Sometimes the rest of the band has to drive to Northampton because the wedding is in Northampton.
Oh, yeah.
We got one of those next month, actually. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where? In Northampton?
In Northampton, I don't know exactly where, but yeah. We have a wedding in Northampton.
Season is in summer.
Exactly, so it's getting started up soon, exactly, yeah.
Do you prefer to play electric guitar or acoustic guitar?
Electric or acoustic? Probably electric. I mean, like, acoustic guitar is kind of nice because you really, you know, you can kind of be your own accompanist in a way, sort of. You know, it's kind of like the piano in that way, where the piano can just do so much. Electric guitar is a little more specific. Like if you're playing electric guitar by yourself, sometimes it feels like you need a bass and drums to really make it work. But yeah, no, I as long as I've played guitar, I've never been much of a gearhead, like getting into all the pedals and effects and stuff like that. And lately, I'm just starting to kind of go down that rabbit hole. I'm very late to that game, and so I think lately I really prefer electric guitar
pedal?
because stuff like that, like all different effects and stuff. Yeah, I have a new little modeling rig that I recently started playing through that has a lot of effects built in, and so yeah, I've been exploring that a lot more and really kind of finally starting to enjoy that stuff and use it in a practical sense, like use it at gigs and stuff. So.
Who is your favorite guitar player?
My favorite guitar player. I mean, I think again, I'm gonna go back to Trey again. Trey Anastasio.
He's the guitar player?
He's the guitarist in Fish. Yeah.
Not the bassist.
But the bassist in Fish, Mike Gordon, is one of my favorite bass players.
He actually is from Massachusetts.
He is, yes, actually.
From Boston.
Nice. Yeah. He is. He's from the Boston area.
Because Adrian said he saw her at a swimming pool.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Place,
I could see that.
Out in, like Boston.
Oh, wow.
And she was like, "Oh, you look familiar." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm Mike Gordon, the bass player for Fish."
Yeah, man. Oh, that's
cool. He was like at a rec. He was like bringing his kids.
Yeah.
His kids played basketball at a rec center.
Yep, makes sense.
And she recognized him. She's like, "Who are you?" And she went up to him and introduced him.
I bet she knew who he was.
Said, "Oh, I'm a big fan of you." And she goes, "Oh, I'm the bass player. I'm Mike Gordon, bass player from Fish."
That's pretty cool, man.
He was just playing basketball with his son at the rec center.
Yeah.
Mike Gordon.
You know, I actually have heard a couple people that I know who have seen Mike Gordon around
out in the Massachusetts area.
Not in Massachusetts anymore, because he actually the band Fish formed up in Burlington, Vermont.
Yeah, UVM.
And so so a couple of them, Mike Gordon has a degree from UVM actually, and a couple of them, no, they didn't all go to UVM.
Oh. That's where they still founded.
They all were in Burlington, but there are other schools in Burlington. Goddard College actually is where Trey and Paige got their degrees, and I think maybe Fishman as well.
Mike was the one with UVM.
Mike went to UVM. I think his degree is in electrical engineering from UVM.
But they did go to.
But that's where they formed the band. UVM. I think Trey started at UVM and transferred. Actually, yeah. But yeah, either way. So they were in Burlington, and Mike and Paige still live in Burlington.
Oh, okay.
So Mike, the bass player, and Paige, the keyboard player, people will see them around Burlington.
Where is Trey live?
Trey, I think, has a place in Burlington, but I believe he full-time lives in New York City.
Oh, okay.
Now.
Nice.
And then the bass or the drummer John Fishman has a farm out in Maine. That's the one I'm most jealous of, man. How about having a farm out in Maine?
I know,
That would be
really.
sweet, right? You know,
Really
you're
cool.
dressed a little bit like a farmer today with that flannel, man.
What guitar player inspired you to pick up the guitar?
Ooh, that one inspired me to pick up the guitar. Wow. You know,
Might be hard to answer.
it is. I think that I've always, as long as I can remember, I always wanted to play the guitar. Even like before I really started identifying like specific guitarists in specific bands, I always really wanted to be able to do that. You know, like I used to like as like a really little kid when I was 7, 8 years old, I used to like pretend to play like the broom. You pretend it was a guitar. You know, whereas I feel like a lot of kids like talk about like banging on pots and pans as like a precursor to becoming a drummer, right? I always wanted to play guitar. I really was always really interested in that. And I mean, like I said before, AC/DC was a big early influence for me. So Angus Young was one of the first like famous guitar players that I was like, wow, I want to see. What?
He passed? Someone?
His brother passed away. Angus Young is still around. Yeah, his brother Malcolm, who was the rhythm guitarist, he passed away a few years ago. Yeah.
I knew one of them. The Young brothers was
good memory.
not living.
Yeah.
His brother was the one who died?
Yeah. Angus, I think, is the younger of the two. But yeah, Malcolm Young, his brother, was the rhythm guitarist.
He's the one who passed.
Yeah. And so that Angus and AC/DC was a big influence for me, but also Eric Clapton, I would say, was a big one. Eric Clapton,
Layla. Yeah,
well, I mean, and all this stuff.
That riff is amazing.
There's specifically this album of Clapton's. It's a blues album called From the Cradle.
Okay,
and
I'll have to check it out.
You should check it out.
I love Clapton.
It's
Clapton's
real,
one of my favorites.
and it's real classic blues. You know, it's kind of post when he was doing like
before Layla.
Well, no, it was after that stuff. It was after a lot of his hits and stuff existed. He was like not old like he is now necessarily, but I want to say it was like the 90s probably when he came out with this album, when he recorded this album. And it's just classic blues. A lot of them are songs that already existed. I think there's some originals on there, but a lot of them are just kind of classic blues tunes.
It's from the Cradle?
From the Cradle.
That's the name of the album?
And he absolutely shreds. It's one of my dad's favorite albums of all time.
Oh, okay.
And see, my dad is a big Clapton guy. I feel like my whole life, as a young kid, I always remember him saying like, "Oh, the Clapton's the best guitar player, man. Clapton is number one. He's the best," you know. So even if I don't know, I feel like personally now I don't really like think of like one. No, I still love Clapton. I'm saying I don't necessarily think of one guitar player as better than the other anymore. Like I feel like I look at guitarists differently now that I am one. But he always said that Clapton's number one. Clapton's the best, you know. Like so, I grew up with that idea in my mind. Clapton's the best. Clapton's number one, you know. Like, so, yeah, totally.
Well, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish we had more time, but...
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I'd like to thank Matt for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Enjoy.